guys and gals, Nary here from Drake Wing Gaming, and some of you may on Twitter, the Gaming Dragon today. I'm coming back at you with another Let's Play episode of Moonlight Castle. I like how the home screen changes every time you play. That's pretty cool. Anyway, y'all, before we jump into it, just wanted to let y'all know that our Patreon is now up for as little as $5. Y'all can help support the channel, get some awesome rewards like permanent access to our community Discord server and full access to upcoming Not Safe for Work videos. All that for as little as $5, y'all. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump right back into it. Alarm chain, you are up, and let's go. Alright. So you're fine? He chuckled and finally turned to face me, although it wasn't long until he closed his eyes again. Some would think he was drowsy, but to me he seemed fully awake. I was only trying to sound poetic. Clyde recommended this book to me. It's about short poems, and I was inspired to make some myself. Thoughts? I scratched the back of my head, trying to recall what he'd said earlier. However, the only replay I could see was full of random and disconnected bits. The entire thing was already gone. Maybe warn me about it next time? I wasn't prepared. I was hoping to observe the reaction of someone who wasn't ready for it. I apologize. I let out an awkward chuckle. It seemed everyone had their eyes on me today. If the smoke is bothering you, don't hesitate to tell me, okay? I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I'll just go somewhere else where I can't disturb anyone. I chuckled even more than I thought at the thought of him hiding away from people. He'd been caught lying back in the smallest corner of the building, smoking and staring away at the sky. Any room would work for him as long as it was secluded, even locked ones. What about Clyde? I can't disturb him if he doesn't see it. I smiled at his comeback. Surely people trusted him enough to believe his little mischiefs were harmless. He just wanted to find some peace and quiet. I understood that. So, should I stop? Oh, sorry, I got sidetracked. Well, you know that I don't mind the smell, but I'm rather concerned about how much you smoke. Depends on the day. I'm sorry, there's some things that one can't simply let go. You want to talk about it? I was worried about him, but I didn't want to be like Ryan. Whether or not the canine wanted to open up was his own decision to make, not mine. The only thing I could do was to remind him that he had friends to rely on. I appreciate the offer, but I have to refuse. You don't need to hear it. I wanted to argue, but I knew I'd be fighting a losing battle. Therefore, I simply moved on to the real person I was looking for him. Clyde asked me to come get to you. It seemed he was having trouble. Blake sighed as he took a look at the remainder of his cigarette. He made a grunt as well as a big puff, one last time, before he was forced to put it out. I told him to let me handle his papers, but he's hopelessly stubborn when it comes to work. He needs to be more patient. Not everything has to be done immediately. I didn't have all the details, but wholeheartedly I agreed with the wolf. Were you alone? You're the only one that walked in, but I'm pretty sure I heard more footsteps. Oh, it was Liam. He's waiting outside. Even before I could finish mentioning Liam's name, Blake took a small bottle out of his pocket and used what was in it to rinse his throat. Makes sense. Give me a second. It seemed he was trying his best to get rid of the smell for Liam's sake. The Lynx didn't deserve that treatment, in my opinion, but I preferred to keep that statement to myself. I was the first to walk out of the restroom, then I checked the hallway in both directions without saying a word. I wanted to see if we had an opportunity to ditch Liam in case he wasn't paying attention. Are you trying to sneak out? I shrieked at Lynx's jump scare from behind, the only corner that I hadn't checked. I didn't think he'd be there due to the smell, but in all fairness, it was already fading, and he was the kind of person that would totally put up with it just to mess with me. Fuck you, Liam! I pushed him away, but he simply bounced back with another annoying snicker. We're even now. It took me a second to connect the dots, and I felt relieved when it clicked. I was the target? Bingo! Honestly, I was still a little skeptical of him. I can never predict this guy. Are you sure we're even? Would it make you feel better if I told you that I hadn't planned to prank anyone else? Even if I had, I'd no longer need your help since I already pranked you here. So, yeah, we're even. Immediately, I thought of the items that he was keeping in his backpack. Then I narrowed my eyes. This whole thing was still suspicious to me. I know what you're thinking, and I can explain, really. Are you okay? Joel, are you okay? Blake came out of the restroom, and his eyes were fully open. I'd never seen him with such a face before, and that combined with his tone was definitely a bad sign. He sounded worried and slightly irritated. Maybe he'd predicted that Liam was going to pull a prank on me. Oh, my bad, we bumped into each other by accident, and I was startled. That's all. I cut in, as my protective side was kicking in for reasons that I didn't even know. Though, one thing I knew was that Blake had always despised pranks. I had to say something, or things could go really badly. I just needed to look where I was going. I'm fine, really. Wolf crossed his arms and reluctantly relaxed his face. I believe you. I could tell that he knew what I was trying to do, and he just decided not to make a fuss about it. The three of us then headed downstairs with no further talk for a while. As we approached the first floor, Liam leaned over and whispered to me. Thanks, for earlier. I was sure that the wolf could hear us, but it seemed that the Lynx was either unaware or careless. Can you tell me about the mask now, and also the knife? I'd always known that Liam still liked to prank people, but bringing blades and fake blood to school seemed like a little excessive, even for someone like him. I can't tell you yet. He looked troubled. It was an expression that I rarely saw on his face, so it was kind of alarming. It was incredibly out of his character. Okay, is this another joke? Stop messing around, I'm getting worried. Taking y'all, water time. Coffee time, I should say. Oh yeah. That's it. He wrapped his arm around my neck and rested his elbow atop my shoulder, trying to downplay it, but I wasn't fooled. Something fishy was definitely going on. No jokes, I promise. I'll share it with everyone later, but I'd rather say it once. Are you okay, though? It's nothing bad, right? I'm fine. It's going to be nice. Okay, I'll be patient then. Although Blake didn't say anything, his ears flickered a few times during the ordeal. It seemed like he was carefully listening into our conversation. I couldn't stop wondering what Liam wanted to share with everyone. Was he going to be okay? It all just felt really unusual to me. Clyde! Blake opened the door to the council room, and I forced myself to return to reality as the three of us entered the office. Nope. Clyde was sipping tea from a cup while also listening to the phone. You're 1 minute early. Allow me to finish. In the meantime, Liam and I brought over some nearby chairs to sit the opposite of the table from the council president, and Blake went through the archives to look for something. I could see that the dragon was watching the time. He ended the call exactly 1 minute afterward. There we go, right on time. He announced it proudly as if he expected everyone to also be paying attention to the time. Nobody really cared, and I just handed him my documents. Wonderful. Many thanks, Joel, for bringing Blake here, and for delivering what I'd requested a few days prior. Don't mention it. I'm glad I could help. The wolf approached us and dropped a folder on the table. This is the summary of your last meeting. I think this is the paper you were looking for. Clyde quickly skimmed my documents and applied a stamp on his signature, the latter of which looked extremely fancy. Blake, my lifesaver. Your assistance is always appreciated. As Clyde was reaching for the folder, Blake pulled it away just enough from the dragon's grasp. The same scene then happened a second time before the dragon began to question the wolf's behavior. What are you doing? Why do you need this? I'd like to prepare a speech for my next campaign, and it'd be a delight if I could make sure it'd be even more incomparable than the previous one. When was the previous one? Last week, I believe. And when is the next one? Clyde froze upon hearing the last question. It was the first time I'd ever seen him mulling over what to say before answering to someone. It's a priority to ensure I'll be delivering the perfect speech, and I'll spend as much time as necessary to realize it. He ended up avoiding the question, and then he tried to reach for the folder again, only for Blake to secure it in both arms. If you'd be so kind as to hand over that folder, I'd be grateful. Blake stayed firm and refused to comply. Clyde's fancy mannerism had no effect on the wolf. It is water time. Coffee time. There we go. The campaign is next month, and you've never had a problem speaking in front of an audience. Why need you prepare it so early, Clyde? It's prudent to plan ahead, and it'd be most efficient to work on it now, while I still have this so-called free time. You're not spending your free time working. Your dedication is noble, but this is dangerous to your health, Clyde. My health? I've been to numerous doctors, and I can assure you that both my body and mind are in the best condition. For now, yes, but you never told any of those doctors just how much of a burden you've been carrying on your back. Eventually, it'll take its toll on you, especially if you keep putting yourself under so much pressure. Don't be ridiculous, Blake. Me, under pressure? That's inconceivable. I knew I wasn't supposed to take part in this conversation, and neither was Liam, but we had no other choice. When it seemed to be less heated, he and I chimed in. I agree with Blake. It's important that you take a break to do something else, something personal, something that you like. Your life shouldn't be only about working. I can't even comprehend how you do it. If I didn't get to play games for at least 5 hours, I'd be totally depressed. Clyde was quiet. It seemed he was lost in his thoughts. Maybe he was taking the time to try to accept the truth, after hearing it from other people rather than just Blake. You told me before that you might be willing to give it a try, hadn't you? The dragon played with his long whiskers. Then he adjusted his glasses and began to speak again. I'll be honest with you, Blake. You've been very helpful to me, and without your assistance, I was sure to be falling behind my schedule. You've aided me multiple times, so I've come to the conclusion that I should probably give this, entertainment thing a chance. That's a good dragon. We'll sort out the details later, but for now, you may have this folder. I understand the premise, but please refrain from addressing me as a good dragon ever again. Feels strange. My bad, I was just trying to be friendly. Is that how a conversation usually goes between fellow students? Yes, absolutely, and you should call him a good puppy, too. My eyes almost escaped their sockets when I heard that. I couldn't believe Liam. I was so shocked at the way he talked to the dragon that I forgot even to pull down my hat. Blake turned his face to look at the lynx, and I couldn't think of a word to describe what I was seeing. The wolf was visibly upset, yet he somehow managed to keep a straight face. Maybe he was holding it back only because we were with Clyde. Should I avoid doing so? You seem displeased. Despite how knowledgeable the dragon was. Sorry, y'all. It seemed he was completely oblivious when it came to informal language and interaction among friends. I think you could learn more about casual interaction by spending more time with other students, and maybe you could start by hanging out with these two. Blake was clearly trying to make us spend more time with Clyde, and as payback for what happened earlier in the hallway. It would have been unfair to me if I actually minded hanging out with the dragon. However, I genuinely thought that he was cool. I'd love to. Liam, however, was sweating. There was absolutely nothing he could do to get himself out of this. He practically set himself up for it. Fine. Ugh, me and my goddamn mouth. I laughed. Although Liam was being stupid and kind of crossing a line, I was happy with how this whole thing turned out. And promptly, Clyde reminded us that our class was about to start, and that we should hurry at once. Therefore, we were all preparing to leave the room. I was actually quite excited to meet Clyde again, and this time without having to think too much about formalities or the fact that he was part of the student council. As we were returning to our class, Blake made a stop to stand over Liam. Liam, my dearest friend, may I have your attention for a moment? The wolf was waiting for a chance to give a piece of his mind to the feline, and now was the perfect moment to do so since we were no longer with Clyde. Yes? Blake grabbed Liam by the shoulders, holding the lynx in place. The feline audibly gulped, knowing well that he was in trouble. I stopped walking to look at them. It'd be pretty awkward to show up late to my class when I was already in the classroom just an hour ago, but I didn't want to miss the scene either. Joel, I'm thankful that you were supporting me back there, and I wanted to say that I really appreciate your help. You're a kind person, and if you don't want to hang out with Clyde, please don't force yourself. Blake, don't ever think that I was forced to agree with you. I really wanted to spend time with Clyde. He seems like a cool, unique person, and I like him. Second, y'all. Coffee time. Alright, coffee done. I'm so happy to hear that. In fact, I'm so happy that I might end up going easy on Liam, which wouldn't be ideal to be honest. I need to have a word with him in private. Please go ahead and don't worry about us. It was a shame that I couldn't stay to see the best part, but I understood why the wolf would rather not have me around. I did as he asked and walked away on my own. Liam was probably begging me to stay and save him, or rather that was what I believed from looking at his eyes at the last second. I rushed back to my classroom, and luckily the professor hadn't shown up yet. Ryan was waving at me as I was returning to my seat. Where have you been? You have no idea. This is the wildest Monday morning I've ever had. That'll make a good lunchtime story. He waved again. Maybe another friend of his just arrived. Admittedly, I've never interacted with his friends, though I'd assumed that he was quite a popular bear. Yo, Ryan, doing well? Oh, hello there. Crocodile made his way through to us. I recognized his face, but not his name. It had probably been mentioned at some point, but my stupid brain just decided that it'd be better off forgetting it. Ryan! Dylan, hey, good morning! I reserved 2 seats as you asked. Thanks, dude. I really needed a good place to look at the board. I'm struggling with math. Don't worry about it, I get you. My friend Joel is actually super smart. Maybe he can share his notes with you. Ryan was embarrassing me again. He meant no harm, and it was flattering to hear him say something like that, but I wasn't as good at math as he made it seem so. I mean, we can do that, but I'm a bit messy when it comes to taking notes. I don't mind helping, though. Ryan and I usually work together. It's better than studying alone, that's for sure. I showed my notebook to Dylan, and it felt super awkward because I knew that my handwriting was confusing. Only the writer himself would be able to decipher such a chaotic mess. Oh. Alright, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and pause it right there. thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and check out our Patreon if you can. It always helps. We're going to be moving in a few days, y'all. We're going to be moving in a few days. Tuesday. Oh, man. Gonna be leaving California behind. Leaving California behind and heading back to my hometown. Gonna be wild. Gonna be wild, y'all. It's been pretty real in California, but it's too expensive here. It's time to move on. I'll be bringing my partner back with me, and I'm very much looking forward to that. We got our own place set up and everything. So, yeah, can't wait. Anyway, y'all, thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and check out our Patreon if you can. It always helps. Anyway, I love you all. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye.